Hello and welcome to Today in Sports. This is the inaugural episode of this new show on the National Sports Network. Today is July the 6th, and we are going into this new show I have created. Basic idea of Today in Sports: it's all sorts of sports, all major sports and even small sports, going down and, looking at soccer scores and, looking big stories in all four major sports, in tennis, in golf when there's headlines, things like that. It's going at all sports and, adding some Today in Sports history facts in each episode just to have a thing for each episode, I guess. So just starting off today's show, Dwight Howard being traded to the signing with the Rockets. That was a 4-year, $88 million deal, 15% trade kicker on that deal, which means if he gets traded, his salary, which is currently at $22 million per year, would get a 15% increase after that. And he's got a third-year opt-out. So after 3 years in 2016, if he wants to, he can leave that contract. But the team, it's not a team option, it's just for Dwight Howard. And staying in the NBA, forward Josh Smith has chosen the Detroit Pistons, and he has signed a 4-year, $56 million deal. He was previously with the Atlanta Hawks, and they're saying it's likely he's chasing a title because Atlanta is currently a team that has been dropping, and Detroit is got some good young talent on their team. All right, moving on to the NHL. Bobby Ryan has been from the Anaheim Ducks has been traded to the Ottawa Senators for right-wing Jacob Silfverberg, the 2014 first-round pick from the Senators, and the Sens' 2011 top pick overall, Stefan Noisen. So basically, this is a trade with Bobby Ryan is an outstanding scorer. He's had multiple 30-goal seasons, and but then, of course, there's a lot coming to Anaheim. Personally, I feel like this might be a little high of a cost, showing that it has basically 2 first-round picks and another young player in it. It looks like Ottawa might have come out on the bottom on this trade because Anaheim is getting a lot for this. But of course, Bobby Ryan's an elite player, and this is coming just on the end after the Sens lost Daniel Alfredsson, who has really been the face of this franchise, and he signed with the Detroit Red Wings. Of course, that really showing that Detroit might still be the place to go for a free agent, and Detroit ain't going anywhere soon. All right, just a quick rundown of scores in a few of the smaller leagues. Going to the Major League Soccer, New England beat San Jose 2-0, and Houston beat Philadelphia by the score of 1-0. And then in the WNBA, LA won 93-66 over San Antonio. Indiana won 78-66 over Connecticut, and Washington won 66-59, playing against Seattle. All right, moving on to tennis. Marion Bartoli defeated Sabine Lisicki 6-1, 6-4. Okay, Lisicki was the one who beat Serena Williams, and Bartoli's had a pretty easy road, though. She hasn't had to face anybody higher than Sloane Stephens, the American, who I believe was 18th. And Bartoli is the 15th ranked player, so she never had to play anybody higher than her. Lisicki is only the 23rd ranked player. And this was a fairly easy match. Bartoli broke Lisicki's serve 5 out of 8 times. That is an outstanding rate. She broke, for the tournament, 52% of the time she broke her opponent's serve. That is outstanding. That is the best percentage for a champion in Wimbledon in the last, I believe, 10 years, excuse me. That is a outstanding percentage. It actually looked like even more of a blowout. In the last set, Bartoli was at 4-1. Lisicki came back a little bit, fought off 3 championship points, but finally gave in the 10th game of that set, giving Bartoli her first Slam championship. And of course, tomorrow we have the final of Djokovic and Murray, the 1 and 2 seed. Of course, that bracket also had multiple upsets in it. Federer going out in the second round and Nadal in the first. And it's going to be a good match. Djokovic coming off a brilliant 5-set win over Del Potro. It was a long, hard-fought battle. Murray having a little easier route to the finals. But this is the 1-2 players in the world, 1 and 2 seeds, and this should be a outstanding match, a rematch of last year's final. Of course, Murray is from Great Britain, so this is more of a home turf advantage in this one compared to Djokovic, who is outstanding, the best player in the world, and of course has had this big rise in the last couple years. He was always a great player, but he has risen his game, and it's been outstanding. All right, going on to the MLB, looking at the All-Star rosters, which were announced today. All right, looking at the AL roster, starting for them, Joe Mauer is starting at catcher. He's having a really good year for Minnesota, although it's been kind of quiet, as Minnesota has been having a less than glamorous year. Still 10 games below 500. They were doing okay there, but they have dropped quite a few since then. All right, at first base, the leading vote getter in for the All-Star game, Baltimore has 3 starters on this roster, and one of them is at first base, and Chris Davis. This is his first All-Star game, and he is the only starter on either side to have this be their first All-Star game. All right, going to second base, Robinson Cano. This is an interesting pick, and it really shows the fan voting getting in the way here. He's not had an outstanding season so far. He's had injuries multiple times, and this is a pick I don't really like, but it shows the fans in here at second. And also a weak position second base is in the American League. All right, third base, Miguel Cabrera. He's out of Detroit, and this is an eighth All-Star game for him, second most of any of the starters on this team. And he's having once again, an outstanding season, leading the league currently in average and RBI. Of course, the home run leader is Chris Davis, and Miguel Cabrera chasing his second straight Triple Crown. Of course, he won it last year. And then at shortstop, J.J. Hardy, who is playing for Baltimore. This is his second All-Star game, and again, another Baltimore player who has had a great season, of course, for himself being an All-Star. All right, Mike Trout out of the L.A. Angels. His second All-Star game was, of course, this is his second year in the league, too. He was AL Rookie of the Year last year, having another great year. Not quite to the caliber he was last year, but he's still an outstanding player. Then you have Jose Bautista as the second outfielder, and he's having another good season up in Toronto. Nothing less than what you expect from him. And then Adam Jones being the third outfielder and third Baltimore player. He is having a great season there, too. So, Baltimore having a third of this starting lineup, it's very interesting. And then DHing for them, David Ortiz, of course, coming into this season. He was on the DL for a while, but then he came in and had a great season after that, and he has continued to be a good player. And, of course, he is a fan favorite, especially in Boston. All right, going into the pitchers onto this team, Clay Buchholz is one of the starters on this team, and he is a right-handed pitcher. Left-handed pitcher, Brett Cecil. Right-handed pitcher, Bartolo Colon. This is an interesting pick. Of course, he is in some of the biogenesis investigation stuff. That is an interesting point to be made on that, and of course, more on that when we get to Ryan Braun. And then Jesse Crane, who is a relief pitcher. He's a right-handed pitcher out of Chicago currently. Yu Darvish, of course, the starting pitcher for Texas, having an outstanding season once again. Felix Hernandez, not a shock, out of Seattle. Hisashi Iwakuma is having an outstanding season in Seattle. Almost better than Felix. Of course, not quite, but still a great season for him. Justin Masterson out of Cleveland, having a great season in his starts. Joe Nathan is one of the closers. He's a righty for Texas. Glenn Perkins making his first All-Star Game appearance, and he is the closer for Minnesota, having a quietly incredible season. He is blown very few saves. I believe he's only blown one that I know of the last time I checked on him. So that is a good pick for a player who's on a team, especially when you're a closer. It's hard to be noticed when you're on a losing team, And, of course, his first All-Star game, a good year from him. And then, of course, on the exact opposite scale, you have right-handed pitcher, maybe the greatest closer of all time, a future Hall of Famer in his 13th All-Star game out of the New York Yankees. It's Mariano Rivera. He has had just an outstanding year already. He deserves to be in this All-Star game. He would have been on this All-Star game if he was had a mildly okay season. He deserves this pick right now. All right, then Chris Sale, who for the Chicago White Sox, left-handed pitcher, and then two right-handed pitchers out of Detroit. That's Max Scherzer, who is having a brilliant season, up to 13-0 now. That is the best start in Major League history since, I believe, '86. And then Justin Verlander, who is slumping by his standards, but having an outstanding season for most standards, and that's his 6th All-Star game for him. And then going into the reserves, quite a few first All-Star game and second All-Star game players. A couple anomalies to that, but overall, it is this way. And of course, a lot of these players are on smaller teams, and of course, each team must have at least one All-Star game, so you get a couple of those in this. All right, first the two catcher reserves. There is Jason Castro. He is playing for Houston currently, and he's having a silently good year for Houston. Of course, this is Houston's first year in the American League. And then Salvador Perez for Kansas City. He's also a catcher, and again, a team that hasn't been doing great, and kind of a silently good year for him. All right, then at first base / DH, it's Edwin Encarnacion for Toronto. This is his first All-Star game, and he's been consistent the last few years, but finally getting the nod. Prince Fielder at first base for Detroit. If it wasn't Chris Davis at first base, it probably would have been Prince Fielder. I'm assuming they were the top 2 vote getters. And I like this pick. I mean, it's a kind of an obvious pick. Prince Fielder is a great player. You look at second base, you got 2 reserves there in Jason Kipnis and Dustin Pedroia. Kipnis out of Cleveland, Pedroia out of Boston. Of course, this is 4th All-Star game for Pedroia, which is one of the highest number on reserves, next to Prince Fielder at 5, and then Torrey Hunter later on in the outfield, who also has 5. But Pedroia and Kipnis both having good years, both deserve to be on this team. All right, going to shortstop, you get Johnny Peralta out of Detroit. Quite a few Detroit players on this reserves. Of course, Miguel Cabrera in the starting lineup, but quite a few players who deserve to be All-Stars down here in the reserves. And then you got Manny Machado, who's having an outstanding season at third base for Baltimore. Really, really good year for him. I really like that player. Manny Machado, he really could be the next Mike Trout. I mean, he is the next Mike Trout. He's got speed, he's a 5-tool player, and I really like Manny Machado. All right, then you got Nelson Cruz, who is an outfielder for Texas, and this is his 2nd All-Star game. Great outfielder, not surprising pick. Then you have Alex Gordon, who is playing for Kansas City, and this is his first All-Star game. Another Kansas City player, and I like this Kansas City team has a couple of good players, and that's why they're on this team. All right, then Torrey Hunter is another outfielder who he's from Detroit, and this is his 5th All-Star game. He's a veteran, and he's a great player. So it's good to see him back in the All-Star game, having a really good year in Detroit. He is another hitter on this Detroit team. I believe their top 4 or 4 of their top 5 hitters are in this All-Star game, so it shows the power of their lineup. And then the last reserve on this American League team is Ben Zobrist. He's listed as an outfielder / infielder. He basically plays everything. His 2nd All-Star game, and he plays for the Tampa Bay Rays. All right. Now you have the National League All-Star Game, and of course, Yasiel Puig, a big drama coming into this game. Of course, Jonathan Papelbon making his remarks, saying it'd be basically stupid for him to play in this game. So, of course, Yasiel Puig, looking at him, it was interesting seeing if he would or would not make it. He was, of course, not in the starters because he was not on the ballot, but he did have a crazy amount of write-in votes. He had over 800,000 write-in votes, and I'll get to him later when I come to that. All right, on the starters on this team, Yadier Molina out of St. Louis, his 5th All-Star game. He's a great player, deserves to be here, and he's having a good year. Joey Votto, first base, Cincinnati. having a really good year as well, and he deserves to be here. Brandon Phillips, second base, Cincinnati. Also, third All-Star game, having a great season out there. Not a kind of a silently good season, though. It hasn't been a season where everybody knows about it, but he's a really good player. David Wright, playing for the New York Mets, of course, the host team for this All-Star game, and this is his 7th All-Star game appearance. He's having a great year. Then you look for shortstop, Troy Tulowitzki, out of Colorado. He's an outstanding player. I'm amazed this is only his 2nd All-Star game. I really like this player. Then you have Carlos Beltran out of St. Louis, and he's having a really good year so far. This is his 8th All-Star game, and of course he was monumental when they won the All-Star game. Not the All-Star game, excuse me, the World Series a few years ago. Alright, then you've got Carlos Gomez after Colorado. He's actually currently leading the league in WAR, which is an outstanding thing, I believe. But it's because he is a 5-tool player, and so far he's having a great year. He plays left field most of the time, but he has had a batting average over 300 this year. 24 home runs already, which is really high. 63 RBIs, and he's slugging .617. So great year for him so far. All looking to be career best for him. A great year for Carlos Gomez so far. And then, of course, you have Bryce Harper, 2nd All-Star game for him, similar to Mike Trout, National League Rookie of the Year last year. Not a great batting average so far, only hitting .263. But this, of course, is the fan voting for the starters, so Bryce Harper, being a fan favorite, got in here. All right, then you look at the pitchers on this National League team. Madison Bumgarner, San Francisco, first All-Star game appearance. Look, it's good to have him on this team. I think he's had a good enough year to be on this team. So far, 3.05 ERA and a 9.5 win-loss record's not great, but the thing I think has been his best thing so far this year, he has a .97 whip, which is really good. Anything less than 1 is really where you want it to be, which means he's not even allowing a full hit/walk per inning, excuse me. And then Aroldis Chapman, of course, a great reliever, not surprising on this team whatsoever. Not the season he quite had last year, but he has 20 saves, 59 strikeouts, and he's having a good year so far. He in his last 3 starts has only allowed 1 earned run, and of course he strikes out a guy basically once every 3 batters or so, or once every 1.5, I believe. Then you got Patrick Corbin. He's a left-handed pitcher. Arizona, this is his first All-Star game, and he's a starting pitcher down there. But he's, 9-1 win-loss record, which is outstanding. 2.49 ERA, and a whip that just is over 1. Great year for him, and I'm happy that he gets recognized here. And then you have Jose Fernandez out of Miami. He is a starting pitcher as well. And the 2.72 ERA is what stands out for me. And the 94 strikeouts is also a good stat for him. Then you got Jason Grilly out of Pittsburgh. He is a reliever. And first All-Star game for him as well. This pitching staff is not very All-Star game experienced, I will say. The most All-Star game appearances is Cliff Lee, and this will be his 4th All-Star game. So, again, the pitching staff is unexperienced here. Okay, then you have Matt Harvey, who is having an outstanding year. As most people know, the 2.27 ERA, 141 strikeouts, and a whip at .91, 7-2 win-loss for him. Then you got Clayton Kershaw in his 3rd All-Star game for the LA Dodgers, having a good season. One of the bright spots on this team so far, and the 1.93 ERA, a .93 whip. Again, that ERA, a 1.93, under 2, outstanding year for him so far. It's amazing the Dodgers have lost as much as they have when they have a pitcher like Clayton Kershaw on them. Craig Kimbrell, good reliever, good player, out in Atlanta, and this is his 3rd All-Star game appearance. Cliff Lee, of course, the 4 All-Star game. This is his 4th All-Star game from Philadelphia. He has had a good year so far, starting pitcher. He's 10-2, 2.73 ERA, and a .98 WHIP. That's good enough to be an all-star. Jeff Locke from Pittsburgh, starting pitcher, 8-1 record so far, 2.12 ERA, and he's having a good season out there. And then, of course, we move on. Adam Wainwright, St. Louis, second All-Star game appearance, another starting pitcher, having a good year for them, 2.36 ERA, good year for him. Travis Wood, another starting pitcher. He pitches for the Chicago Cubs. He's also the best hitting pitcher in the league by far. Actually, he already has a couple home runs this year. And but pitchers do not hit in the All-Star game. Both sides use a DH. The AL starting DH is voted in, and then there's normally a reserve who can play DH. And the NL DH is picked out of the reserves for the game, which is always an interesting person pick to see who the manager will pick. Bruce Bochy is the leader of this side. The Giants manager will see who he takes as his designated hitter. All right, then the last pitcher on this team, Jordan Zimmermann, who is a starting pitcher for Washington, having a great year where Steven Strasburg has not. He's got 12 wins and only 3 losses, so he's winning a lot of games, and a .95 WHIP, which is great. All right, now going into the reserves on this team. Third base, Pedro Alvarez. This is his first All-Star game. Again, this team has much less All-Star game experience, although the starters are might have a little more experience. Almost after that, you only have one player with at least 3 previous All-Star game appearances. All right, so Pedro Alvarez, third base, Pittsburgh. Then you have outfielder Dominic Brown for Philadelphia, who's having a year that many people don't know about, but it has already hit 22 home runs and 60 RBI so far. So a good year for this player that many do not know. He's hit 34 home runs in his career. If that shows how few games he really has played. He's only been in the league a few years, but shining in Philadelphia. Then out of San Diego, Everth Cabrera. He's a shortstop. First All-Star game for him as well. Another one of these young players getting an opportunity here. Batting almost 300, and good year for him so far. Matt Carpenter out of St. Louis, and Alan Craig out of St. Louis as well. These are his first and second baseman. Matt Carpenter has 37 RBIs so far, which is okay, but he is batting .319, which is what put him in here. And then you look at Alan Craig, who has hit 10 home runs, which is moderately good. But again, the .325 batting average on him is what brought him into this All-Star game. And then a player who I'm amazed didn't make the starting lineup, and if was being picked this starting lineup, not by the fans, he would have won a starting position so far, having an outstanding year, 342 batting average, 15 home runs, and Michael Kadire is having an outstanding year for Colorado, a former Minnesota Twins player, and had an All-Star game nod back when he was there, and this is his second appearance after that one. Then Paul Goldschmidt, another player who's having an outstanding year and would have probably been picked for the starting position over Joey Votto this year if it was being picked straight like that. He is hitting .305, 21 home runs, 73 RBIs. Good year so far for him. Then Carlos Gomez, who's having an outstanding year down in Milwaukee, even though Milwaukee is not having a strong year so far. .315 batting average and has speed like crazy. On base percentage at .355. And then on Andrew McCutchen has, in his third appearance, he's a center fielder, of course. He's having a good year for a great Pittsburgh team, maybe the best team in the league so far, hitting over 300, and deserves to be on this team, especially his defensive play is absolutely outstanding out in center field. Buster Posey is the reserve catcher on this team, having a good year as well. And then you have Marco Sudero at second base, and Jean Seguro, another Milwaukee player. He's at shortstop, and he's hitting .321, so another player who is having a great season. Of course, there's many people in this game who reserve, and of course, to note there, Yasiel Puig is not in those picks I just talked about, but I will get to that later. All right. Each year, Major League Baseball does something where they have a final vote for a single roster spot on each team. You have a spot that's either going to be a reserve or a pitcher, one way or the other. Of course, in the American League, there's an extra pitcher spot, and Detroit, Joaquin Benoit, right-handed reliever. This is the spot for a right-handed reliever. Then Toronto, Steve Delabar. New York, David Robertson. Texas, Tanner Shepers. And then Boston, Koji Uehara. Those are your final vote spots for the American League, and the winner for that will be announced Thursday, July 11th. All right, then the National League side for the final vote, and this has a few more big names out there. There is Washington shortstop Ian Desmond, Atlanta first baseman Freddie Freeman, who is having a great year as well. He's hitting .307 this year so far. Adrian Gonzalez is a first baseman from the Dodgers, of course, a longtime Red Sox. And then Hunter Pence, the Giants right fielder. And then, of course, Yasiel Puig, the outfielder for the Dodgers, the sensation. He's currently hitting .407, 8 home runs already for this sensation of a Cuban and the Dodgers have really and had a great record since they come in. I believe they're 6 games up from when they first called him up, and really have hit gold with him. He is just outstanding, and I think the Major League Baseball did the right thing here by putting him in the final vote, because they gave him a spot where he can get on the All-Star game, but he's not getting the automatic pick, of course. The big issue with Puig is having only played 21 games or whatever he's played. He does not exactly have the experience. He hasn't really paid his dues in the league yet, so that's why the league's having trouble putting him straight into the All-Star game, and the managers on this team are having trouble with that. But we'll see. Of course, this is, I think, is a much harder vote than the other one. Of course, I believe the other one's going to come more into fan voting. You have a few people, a lot of big fan bases there, but I see somebody like Benoit maybe making it out of Detroit, or David Robertson from New York. I think those are the 2 favorites, but I believe that Puig has enough fan support that he's going to make this All-Star game with the final vote. Of course, last year, Yu Darvish made the All-Star game off the final vote. So it's a place for players who you're not exactly sure about. This is where they get their mark made. All right, moving on to one of our final stories. In the NFL, of course, Aaron Hernandez in the current homicide probe and arrested for homicide. It's a terrible situation there. And New England Patriots, they're doing something I really believe is a great thing, a great moment in sports. Today they offered any Patriots fans who come in, they gave them the opportunity to trade in any Hernandez jersey, any Hernandez shirt for another Patriots one. So there you could see in a newscast, there was a bunch of fans getting a Brady jersey or Gronkowski jersey or a bunch of different Patriots players, and it's a great thing for a team to be doing, kind of helping the fan base, past this. Of course, no parent would really want their kid wearing the jersey of somebody who could be a murderer. It's just it's a bad situation in New England. I think they did the right thing here. All right, quickly, San Francisco, today there was a plane crash coming in from Korea. 2 people have died in that, and I just want to say, from here at National Sports, to the families out there, we hope that those affected in the crash are okay, and just that such tragedies don't happen again. And then please follow me at Twitter at Carl_PM. This network, National Sports, at National Sports 1 on Twitter, and then please follow us on Spreaker. Like us on Spreaker. Tell your friends about us on Spreaker. You get the idea. And quickly, to end the show, like I hope to end all shows on today in sports. Basically, this is on this day, July 6th, in 1933, the first All-Star game in the Major Leagues was played. Kaminsky Park in Chicago, and the AL won 4-2, highlighted with a roster of Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. This has been Today in Sports. I am your host, Carl Mogline. I will see you tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm hoping to actually talk about cycling, so get excited. Thank you, and good night.